The use of any firearm without proper training in safety and firearm usage is extremely dangerous. It is highly recommended that anyone owning or using a firearm attend a certified firearm safety course and practice proper firearm procedures. The views and opinions expressed on the K-Gun Show are those of the individuals and does not reflect the views and opinions of the K-Gun Show, R&R Firearms, or Talkwad Studios.
Straight from Talkwad Studios in beautiful sunny Tampa, Florida, this is the K-Gun Show. The Second Amendment needs our voice. We bring you the latest information about all firearms while revisiting some of the true classics in the industry. We are NRA certified instructors, and as always, safety and education is our first priority. The K-Gun Show is brought to you by R&R Firearms.
Good evening and welcome to the K-Gun Show. I'm your host JR, and like every Wednesday night we are filming here live in beautiful Florida in Tampa Bay. As always, I'd like to remind everybody the 3 basic NRA safety rules. Always keep your firearm pointed in a safe direction. Always keep your finger off the trigger until ready to shoot, and always keep the gun unloaded until ready to use it. This week we have a great guest. We have Attorney Noel Flashenstein from Tampa Bay, Florida here. He's a practicing law in Florida for the last 15 years. His specialty is Second Amendment rights. So he goes out and takes care of everybody's Second Amendment rights, protects them, and makes sure everybody has those rights protected. He's been on Bay News 9 several times, including back in 2011 in support of the open carry law, supporting Governor Scott when he tried to get that law passed here in Florida, which was a shame he didn't make it happen, but there's always next year, and we hope Governor Rick Scott comes along soon with that open carry law, and we join several other states that have an open carry law. Like most states, I believe there's 20 some odd states out of 50 that have that open carry law. So in just a few seconds, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll talk to Attorney Noel, and he's going to tell us about stand your ground laws in Florida. We'll see you in a few minutes.
R&R Firearms provides their customers with the time and education they need to make purchasing a firearm a safe and easy transaction. R&R Firearms also offers NRA training courses, including the training needed for your Florida concealed firearms license. Please stop by our offices at 1411 16th Street North in St. Petersburg, or visit our website at rrfirearms.com. Appointments are available to fit your busy schedule. Please call area code 727-822-7900. That's 727-822-7900.
Back? Yes, here we are. We're back here in Florida, and welcome, Neil.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. And your practice is located here in Tampa Bay, correct?
That's correct. I have an office off of Henderson Boulevard, located in South Tampa, very easy to find. If anybody ever needs to get a hold of me or contact me, they can call me anytime. They can reach me at 813-919-7400. That's my cell phone, and I give that to my clients and potential clients because you never know, especially with the type of law that I practice, when somebody needs to contact me.
Very good. And you've been practicing for 15 years. Have you always been practicing Second Amendment
You know,
rights?
I came into Second Amendment law kind of by accident. I grew up in a small town, Plant City, bunch of redneck guys. And so I was around firearms quite a bit, but I never took an active interest in firearms. Spent a little time in the National Guard, but I always pretty much existed without a firearm until about 2008, when somebody broke into my residence, shot my dog, and it gave me a sense of unease. It gave me a very unsettling feeling. So I thought, I better get a firearm. I better get some sort of protection. And the first thing I noticed once I got a firearm was I felt a lot more secure when I heard one of those bump in the night noises by grabbing my Glock, cocking it, checking it, than I did grabbing the bat, the broomstick, or the big kitchen knife.
Absolutely.
As a result of that experience, I had the firearm. It had been several years since I'd fired one. I thought, well, I probably better, practice, train with this. So in the event, and hopefully it'll never happen, if I ever feel the need to use it in self-defense, it won't be the first time I pull the trigger. I'll be familiar with my firearm. And in the process of getting out in the local gun culture here in the Tampa Bay, Florida area, I started to realize that there were a lot of attorneys and a lot of judges, even though they're sworn to uphold our Constitution, the state of Florida and federal, that weren't very friendly towards the Second Amendment. And so I started learning more about the Second Amendment. I became a NRA referral counsel for the NRA. So if someone has an issue, they contact the NRA. If they're in my area, the NRA will give them my number so that they can contact me. I just started, pursuing it as a passion because it's something I deeply believe in. It is our Constitution. And quite honestly, it's a lot more interesting than, doing a divorce.
I'm sure. And did you take any training once you decided to buy your Glock?
Oh, of course. I mean, I've been fortunate. In fact, your guest last week, Les Rayburn, was one of the people that I've trained with. We're very fortunate here. In a lot of the shooting ranges, you'll find a lot of range officers that will actually give you some training. And of course, I took a course. I actually took a course at a gun show, which I found very informative and very helpful as well.
Well, good. I'm glad that you're a practicing gun owner and a safe gun owner at that. So tell us about stand your ground law here in Florida. It's been a lot of talking about in the media and the news. And is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Should Florida have it? And what's the benefits to us having that law here in Florida?
Well, without a doubt, I'm very glad that our legislature had the wisdom to pass this law. And basically what it did, it's just an enhancement to self-defense. We all have a right, as United States citizens, as Florida citizens, to defend ourselves if we are threatened. And with Stand Your Ground, if we find ourselves, in a situation where we have to use deadly force to defend ourselves, it's done away with basically that duty to retreat. It used to be in self-defense, you're allowed to defend yourself, but if you have the possibility or an option to retreat, then you must exercise that before you actually use deadly force. Well, the problem is, how do we actually define when someone has a reasonable opportunity to retreat safely? And it's basically done away with that duty. The law itself, I think, is very helpful in the fact that I think it also sends a message to the bad guys. Now I think it actually gives us equal footing, because the bottom line is a bad guy with a firearm that's threatening you, robbing you, whatever they may be attempting to do. Obviously, they don't comply with the law. And that right there puts us at law-abiding citizens, that are gun owners, at a disadvantage. But now that the legislature has recognized what I believe a God-given right to defend ourselves and has codified it and put it in our statutes, it gives us an equal footing. Now, if someone, I think someone's going to have to think if they're going, it's going to lessen, the would-be bad guy is going to think about it before he actually decides to commit a crime using deadly force, because now we got law-abiding citizens that have the right to protect themselves and don't have to exercise options such as retreating that the bad guy did not have to exercise.
So it sounds like you're definitely for Stand Your Ground, which I agree with the law, and I'm totally backing it. But there's been cases people have talked about to where some attorneys have abused the Stand Your Ground law to get their client off, to where it wasn't the nature of the law in the first place. And I mean that happens with any law. There's people use it when it's not really in the nature of the law. But is there a lot more cases to where it's helped people than helped people get off to where they probably shouldn't have got off?
Without a doubt, that's incorrect. And the Seminole case here in Florida that got a lot of attention, that put a lot of attention on Stand Your Ground, so much so we had a legislative recession, or not necessarily a legislative session, but a commission to review that law. Unfortunately, was the Trayvon Martin case and the Zimmerman case, in which Stand Your Ground wasn't even asserted as a defense. Basically, how Stand Your Ground works, Part of the, again, you got to look at it. It's basically stand your ground. I would break it up into two parts. One, it does away with the duty to retreat if you have to use deadly force in protecting yourself. And two, it protects from criminal prosecution if you are lawfully defending yourself. And in this sense, if you, like I said, if we look back at the Trayvon Martin case, or the Zimmerman case, however people want to call it, it wasn't even asserted as a defense. Because typically what happens, and I've done stand your ground cases, nothing has tragic as the Trayvon Martin case where someone was actually shot and killed. Again, wasn't even asserted in that case. What it does, if someone wants to claim stand your ground has a defense in operation of their self-defense, you can have a hearing for a motion to dismiss. And this is basically done by the judge. Your client has been charged with whatever they may have been charged with, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, murder. You can have a hearing asserting the stand your ground defense, saying that you are immune from prosecution based on that statute. Well, this is heard before a judge, so it takes it out of a jury, and it's solely heard by the judge. Reality, the practical application has been most judges, in my opinion, and my experience, have simply denied it. Why should they take, and I kind of can understand why they would do that. Why should I decide this when I can just send this back to the jury? So, as an attorney, the practical effect that I've seen with stand your ground and why I will hold the hearing expecting that most likely it's not going to be of much benefit in terms of getting the case dismissed, but it allows me to see the prosecution's case. It's almost like a mini trial. So I can see the theories and the evidence that the prosecution is going to rely on in moving their case against my client. So I do find it very helpful. But at the same time, all the stand your ground defenses, motion to dismiss that I've raised have been unsuccessful. But when you get in front of a jury and you have a good self-defense case, because I'm a Second Amendment attorney, so I do have clients that contact me that have used their guns in self-defense. It's not the guy that went to the liquor store to rob it. It's the guy that defended himself. And what I've also seen and what I've also found, a great book by John Lott, More Guns, Less Crime. My clients, in every stand your ground case that I've done, they didn't even fire or pull the trigger. They just displayed their weapon. And in line with the findings of John Lott, he's an economics professor, wrote the book, More Guns, Less Crime. 97% of the time when a firearm is withdrawn or displayed for self-defensive purposes, a shot's not even fired. Bad guy sees it and says, hey, let me disengage from this. Now, I don't think stand your ground by no means has opened the wild west as people might want to characterize it, nor has it made us a shoot 'em up society. I would guess, and I think the statistics will bear that, it has a chilling effect on criminal operations, on would-be bad guys. Because one of the things we've seen since stand your ground has gone to effect, and you don't have to take my word for it, just go to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement websites and you'll see a precipitous drop in the crime rate, specifically violent crimes such as murder, rape, robbery, armed robbery, home invasions. And that's why we are fortunate in Florida, some of the spillover effect of our laws that recognize and are protective of the gun owner and gun rights, clearly has a chilling effect on criminals and people wanting to engage in criminal behavior.
Okay. For our listeners, I have a question for you. God forbid I do use my firearm in a self-defense. I'm at home, somebody breaks down my door, he's showing a weapon, and I go get my firearm and shoot at him and kill him. Obviously, I'm going to call 911, but what's the next step? What's the best thing for me to do? Do I talk to the police officers when they show up? Do I call an attorney like yourself? What do I do? What's my best course of action?
I would, in a situation like in your home, here in Florida, we have the castle doctrine. And what that means is if somebody is breaking into your home, an uninvited guest, you can presume that they intend to cause you great bodily harm or death. They intend to do some great harm, which use deadly force against you. So this kind of, in your home, if you're protecting yourself, you're on a much better footing. So if a intruder breaks in, and I think you got to look at these situations case by case, circumstance by circumstance. If an intruder breaks in your house and you shot them and you don't know who they are and they're lying on your floor, I would feel comfortable in that situation personally, calling police and telling them what happened, and then kind of leaving it at that. And if the intruder, if I shot them and they're outside of my front porch, I would call the police and say that I'd be happy to talk to you, but I want my attorney present. And if you're ever in a self-defensive situation where you actually have you have to use your firearm and somebody is injured or killed, 911, call the police, and I would probably in that instance, I think I'd be more inclined to I shot this person in self-defense. I'd like to call my attorney before I answer any more questions and leave it at that. And that's why, because we never know when these situations are going to happen, that's why I give my clients my cell number so they can contact me. So when you're out there looking for an attorney, especially in terms of someone that can assist you with the Second Amendment and your protection, make sure they give you that, that you have that ability to call them directly. And when I have people contact me that are gun owners and they're saying, in the event, may I call you? And I'll say, yes, I'll give them my number. And then I'll also recommend to them that they contact another attorney that they know is pro Second Amendment to have them as backup, because you never know. I mean, God forbid something should happen. It's 10 o'clock at night, you're calling me, you have my cell phone, but I'm not answering because I'm out of the country or I'm out of the state or whatever may be the case. Another good resource in line with your questioning and is a book by an attorney in Orlando, Florida, John Guttmacher. He's who I aspire to be, and it's Florida Firearms Law, Use and Ownership. I recommend every gun owner and every attorney that wants to practice in this area get this book. A lot of questions can be answered. Now, of course, attorneys can't always answer things specifically because cases and circumstances are different. And what may be applicable in one situation, shooting someone in your house in self-defense, may not be applicable in shooting someone at the ATM. When when I say shooting someone, I mean you're shooting them in lawful self-defense. They were trying to
rob you with a knife or something, and you reacted.
The law in your home, the law is going to give you a presumption that the prosecution is going to have to overcome that this person in your house intended to do you great bodily harm, use deadly force against you. When you're outside of the home, the Castle Doctrine doesn't apply. You're not going to have that presumption. You're going to have to establish your defense and that you had a justifiable use of force. Interestingly enough, the Castle Doctrine also will be applicable if you're a guest at a family member's home or a friend's house and you're staying the night. The Castle Doctrine would also be applicable in your place of business. So, your place of business, R&R Firearms, if somebody went in there, which would really be utterly foolish, let's go hold up the gun shop, and you had to protect yourself and use deadly force against them, you're going to have the same protections of the Castle Doctrine. That the prosecution will have to overcome that presumption that they intended to use deadly force against you, cause you great bodily harm, and so forth.
Speaking, you said in a business, can a business owner open carry in his own premise, his own business?
Yes.
Yes.
Check me. Let me get a little disclosure. But currently, because our laws do change, my understanding that yes, a business owner can carry openly in his business. It's his business, just like he could openly carry in his residence. I would also suggest and double check that a business owner could carry concealed in his business.
Without a license?
Without a license. But this case, I would say the law is read that way and can be interpreted that way, but we haven't had a case come to light to affirmatively answer if my interpretation of the law is correct. You don't need if you're carrying in your home, obviously you don't need a concealed carry permit to have your gun tucked away. But I believe the sanctity of the home and the protections afforded gun owners in the home would also be applicable in the business. But I would always and highly recommend get your concealed weapon permit license if you want to be at your business and you do carry. So there is no question. Having a concealed weapons permit will obviously do away with a lot of questioning and gives you a lot of protections. Now, in a retail place, as you know, when I go to gun stores, a lot of
the managers open carry.
Open carry, not a problem. It's so.
Can a farmer open carry when he's tending his field?
It's his property. Yes, of course. That would be my interpretation. And just because it's my interpretation, though, and I believe that my interpretation of the law is correct, and that's what exactly I'll argue, doesn't also necessarily mean the court will agree.
That's right. Every attorney thinks their version of the law is appropriate. And speaking of this book that you mentioned earlier, because the laws do change, I did notice on Amazon they come out with several editions, and they do have one for 2014. So if you do have an older edition, I do recommend going and get the latest edition because the laws have changed since the older edition. So I think they're up to 7, I think, is his latest edition.
I believe that's correct, and also I think he does a lot of updates on his website. You can get some updated information there as well.
Gotcha. Let's see, what else do we want to talk about? An off-duty police officer, is he allowed to open carry when he's off duty?
That I do not know, but I can find out. And as a lawyer, of course, no lawyer is going to have in any area of law. Going to have all the answers right there at the top of their head. There are things that I do know off the top of my head because I've been doing them so often, but I'm not going to know everything off the top of my head. But what makes my profession valuable to the gun owner is if I don't have that answer on the top of my head, I know where to go to look to find it.
Right. And the reason I asked that question is I had a friend a couple years ago that does foster children, and his house gets inspected every year to make sure that the house is appropriate for the children that he's fostering. And one night, the person that was doing the check was also a police officer. She was off duty, so she wasn't in the police officer capacity, and she was open carried. And he very nicely asked her to not to bring the firearm into the house. And she refused, saying, "I'm a police officer, I can carry this wherever I want." And he said, and they had a little argument, and he told her he wouldn't let her into the house, and then she said that, that I'm going to say that she refused to let me inspect your premises. And of course, he said, "I'm not refusing you to inspect the premises, but I am refusing you to let you come in the house with a firearm." And so, she stormed off, and at the end of the day, I believe she was recommended because, she was off duty and she wasn't in a police officer capacity. And as we said earlier, a homeowner has the right to refuse people to come into the house with a firearm. Mm-hmm. And so I was just wondering, in general, is a police officer allowed to carry openly when he or she is off duty? And that's just a question I was curious about.
And that is an interesting question. That's something I'll for my own personal interest, we'll look up and find out. Obviously, if they're in uniform, they're allowed to carry.
Absolutely.
And but one of the things I would advise my clients, and I genuinely believe this, in dealing with police officers, I think your constitutional rights at that moment are suspended. Now, you can go and avail yourself of those rights the next day or in front of the judge or when you get your trial or when you get your hearing. But I generally find that it would be wise to kind of comply and be cooperative with the officer. One of the questions I've gotten before in the past is, people ask me, I'm a concealed weapons permit holder. I get pulled over by the police. Do I have to tell them I have a firearm in the car? Do I have to tell them I'm a CWP? And no, you don't. But me, who always is carrying in my automobile, when I get pulled over, and this is my my personal choice. First thing I do is I let the officer know I have a firearm in the car, and I'm a concealed weapons permit holder, and I'll give them my license. And a lot of times they'll ask me for the weapon. Sometimes they'll ask me where the weapon is at, and I will let them know, and they'll say, okay, well, just don't go there. And what I find, since I've done that, and since I've had my concealed weapons permit, I found that I've been stopped maybe 7 or 8 times. And
What have you been doing that you've been stopped 7 or 8 times?
minor traffic. I, went through did the rolling stop at the stop
Okay.
sign. Maybe was doing a little over the speed limit. And I, of course, do not encourage anyone to violate our traffic laws. But, I'm human, and I've
That's
had
right.
some minor things here and there. But every time I've been stopped, first thing I did is I told them I'm a concealed weapon permit holder, and I have a weapon in the car, where it's at. And of those times, I was never given the citation.
Really?
I think they appreciate the fact that I'm telling them and letting them know. And it's a safety issue.
Absolutely.
Now, they're thinking officer safety. They want to know where their weapon is. I'm thinking Knoll safety.
Right.
Because the last thing I want to do is not disclose that there's a weapon in my car and ask for my license and registration, or my registration, and I reach in my glove box, and then all of a sudden my weapon falls out,
right.
rolls out, whatever, and I either get shot because they're in fear for their safety, or I have a police service a firearm at my head. So I want to avoid that altogether.
And I agree with you 100%. I've been pulled over twice. Both times, right off the bat, I mentioned that I am a licensed to carry participant, and both times I got off with no citation. But one of the times, the officer was definitely very skittish, became very concerned, made me get out of the vehicle, and was definitely, you could see that they were uneasy. The other one was very appreciated that I let him know up front, and was very cooperative, and in both cases I moved on.
Well,
So
obviously, I think it communicates to the officer right off the bat that
you have nothing to hide.
you've nothing to hide, and you're not someone that's up to no good. Because if you're a bad guy and you're up to no good and you got a firearm in your car, you're definitely not going to disclose that to the officer.
Exactly. All right, well, we're just about out of time here, and we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll say goodbye to Noel, and we'll end with a few words.
R&R Firearms provides their customers with the time and education they need to make purchasing a firearm a safe and easy transaction. R&R Firearms also offers NRA training courses, including the training needed for your Florida Concealed Firearms license. Please stop by our offices at 1411 16th Street North in St. Petersburg, or visit our website at rrfirearms.com. Appointments are available to fit your busy schedule. Please call area code 727-822-7900. That's 727-822-7900.
Well, we're back at the K Gun Show, and Noel, thank you very much for joining us today. I have a little thank you gift, a little tactical knife with a bottle opener, which every night should have a bottle opener for the weekend. So I appreciate you coming on board, and
Wow, this is really nice.
nice little knife for you. And next week on the K Gun Show, we have Cindy Bolzman. She's an assistant executive director at the Armed Forces Historical Museum in Largo, Florida. If you've never been there, it's a great place to go. They have great historic guns there, and tanks and helicopters and all kinds of things. It's a great little museum, and she's going to come on board next week, tell us about the museum, tell us a few things they have coming up this summer at the museum. So we'll stay tuned next Wednesday, 8 o'clock, and every Wednesday, 8 o'clock, that we have the K Gun Show. And we're going to end today's show again with a video tribute to a military anthem written and performed by Sharon Lee Ruckel from Bradenton, Florida. Everybody have a good night, and we'll see you next week.
Watching like eagles on high, defending the seas and the sky, protecting our shores and our land. May you always red, white, and blue. I can hear freedom ring. I sleep peaceful at night, knowing you're ready to stand up and fight. You're the strength of our nation, the pride of our land, American soldier, for you I will stand. American soldier, I will stand up for you. Defender of country and the red, white, and blue. I can hear freedom ring. I sleep peaceful at night, knowing you're ready to stand up and fight. You're the strength of our nation.